Hello and welcome to our webinar, Prince2 in Easy Project. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Anna Ogunusi. I work in Easy Software as a business development manager. You can see my contact details here below should you need to get in touch at any point. And usually I'm the person that you would speak to if you get in touch through our chat on our website or in your Easy Project application. So just to let you know that should you have any questions during this webinar, please use our Q&A feature of this webinar. So you can just type in your question and I will get to your questions either during the webinar or once we finish. So let's talk about Prince2 in general for a bit. So Prince2 is a project management methodology which is actually widely used especially in Europe. It originates from the United Kingdom. And it consists of 7 principles, 7 themes, and 7 processes. So the 7 principles that collectively provide a framework for a good practice are continued business justification, learn from experience, define roles and responsibilities, manage by stages, manage by exception, focus on product, tailor to the environment. Then we have the 7 themes, which are more like insights on how the project should actually be managed. And those are a business case, organization, quality, plans, risk, change, and progress. And we also have the 7 processes. So they separated the running of a project into 7 processes. And that's starting up a project, initiating a project, directing a project, controlling stage, managing project delivery, managing stage boundaries, and closing a project. So as you can see, this is quite few of the processes, themes, and principles, so we cannot dive into each in a big detail. That's why I have chosen few of the themes, principles, and processes that you can apply in Easy Project, and I will show you today in detail which these few ones I chose and how to work with them in your Easy Project. So for instance, we'll look at the principle of define roles and responsibilities and also the organization theme. We will look at how to manage your project by stages. We will also look at the progress theme, the plan theme, the process of controlling a stage, and I will show you that in detail in our application. So when we are in, let's make it bigger. So when you're in your Easy Project, I think the best piece to start with in general is actually managing your project, your Prince2 project by stages. Okay, it's also very tight. The manage stages principle is very much tied down with the processes, because managed by stages means that we have several stages of the project. Each stage has several steps to it, and each stage is evaluated, which also means that at the end of each stage there is evaluation, there's updates of the documentation, and there's a decision that has to be made whether to go ahead with the project or whether to stop it where we are right now. So the best way to actually, the processes of starting up the project, initiating a project, let's say that each of these processes is actually a stage. Starting up a project is stage 1, initiating a project is stage 2. There are many ways how we can actually plan out a project. So let's show you a few. So first of all, let's create a project, which we'll call Prince2 sample. These are things, the attributes that we can always change later. So let's add some users to our project as well. And let's start creating our project. So as you can know, when you are creating a project in Easy Projects, you can start straight up in WBS, work breakdown, structure, Gantt, Scrum, anything. Let's start in WBS first, and then we'll work in Gantt as well. So we have our project, which is Prince2 Sampler, and let's say that we want to start creating the processes, which is the stages, okay? There are many ways for you to actually go around the stages and the processes, but for purpose of this webinar, let's say that each process is actually a stage for us, okay? So stage 1 would be starting up a project. As you know that when you are in WBS, you can also use a lot of shortcuts which will make it easier for you, such as Enter or Shift Enter, okay, which are really good tip or insight. So stage 2 would be initiating. Stage 3 would be directing. Okay, and we can keep going. We can have as many stages as we really want, or we can just limit it to the 7 processes. However, for this purpose, let's just keep these 3 stages just to make it simple for us. So let's say that each one is a stage. Then each stage actually has a step to it, okay? Such as starting up a project includes create a project mandate, create a project brief, and assign a team. So when we have stage 1, let's create sub-projects. So a subtask, excuse me. Create a mandate, then create a project brief. You can see that on the right-hand side, you can always add more details, more description to the particular task, but you can always edit later as well. And the third piece would be assign a team. Okay, so we have our stage and we have the steps to each stage. Okay, we could actually put for each of the stages, we could put the subtasks, but let's just work with this for now. We can save it. We can also assign it straight away to someone in WBS. But let's have a look in Gantt right now. So WBS is really great for planning out your project. Gantt is what helps you to plan it in time, okay? So you can also create new tasks, of course, as you know, in your Gantt. But personally, I like to create them in WBS, and in Gantt, I like to move them in time and create relations. So, first of all, let's make sure that actually our stage 1 is followed by stage 2, meaning stage 2 cannot start unless stage 1 is finished, is reviewed, and it's approved to actually go ahead with the project. That's something that is very specific to Prince2, is that at the end of each stage, we actually review the project, whether we are happy with it the way it's going, whether is it still beneficial for us to go ahead with the project or to abort the project at that particular stage. There are several factors to it, which we'll talk about a bit later. So let's create relations between the stages. So we have stage 1, and we will create a relation that stage 2 can only start once stage 1 is completed. Okay, you can see that it automatically moved it around. If we want, we can also create like a delay between the stages, which means that there will be like 2 days delay before we can actually start working on it, okay? And the same for stage 3. So, and then we can move it closer or further. So stage 3 can only start once stage 2 has been completed. And we actually want the same thing for our steps of stage 1, meaning we have to complete step 1 to go to step 2 and step 3 to go to step 2. As you can see right now, these relations are not quite taking in place the fact that we have the subtasks over here. That's one setting that is very important to have a look at when working in Gantt and tasks and subtasks. So for that, we will go to our admin. I will just open it in another window to make it easier. you go to your settings, you go to task tracking, and when you scroll down, there's parent task attributes. This is very important, especially for Prince2. Here the predefined setting is that parent task attributes are independent of subtasks. But actually, we want to make it dependent, which means that we cannot close our stage, which is our parent task, unless all the subtasks has been completed. So we'll have to create a dependency of the subtask and the parent task over here. So everything should be calculated from the subtasks, and we'll save it. Now let's just refresh our Gantt so the new setting applies. And you can see that that's why all of a sudden this appears a bit longer. That's because now it's taking into place this. So for instance, just to show you, if for instance the assign a team, I would move it a bit further in time. It's now prolonging the stage 1, and at the same time it's moving stage 2 and stage 3, which are dependent on the stage, further in the future. So that's very important. So this is how we manage our project by stages. Also, Gantt is a place where we can apply the progress theme. The progress theme is where we actually track the project. We know that certain changes can apply, certain delays can appear, and we want to be able to see where it happened, how it happened, and then analyze why it happened as well. For this purpose, we can use the baselines in Gantt. To work with baselines, we go to Tools and we switch baselines on. Now, baselines means that they will record the current state of our Gantt, of our project. So we'll save it. Let's save the changes, and then we can save our baseline. So let's just call it baseline 1 to make it easy. Okay, so now the baseline is in yellow. Let's move one of the tasks. Let's say we can move this task. And now we can compare it to our baseline, which is the previous stage, okay? So when a sponsor of your project, when a project manager comes, they can actually see, or even someone from the board who are overseeing the project, they can see the changes, like what has changed, why is there a delay, in what part of the project did the delay in particular appear, etc. Why is the delay? Is there a way we can work around it to improve it? You can actually save as many baselines as you want. Just make sure that before creating a baseline, you always save your changes in your Gantt, so we can save this as a baseline too. Which means that you can also, the good thing is also perhaps to be using extra dates as names for the baseline, because then you can always choose for with which point in time you want to compare the current state of your project, of your Gantt. So I said that at the end of each stage, Prince2 methodology applies the review of the stage and of the overall project. So at the end of each stage, we come to a point where the project manager or the sponsor, they are supposed to review whether is it beneficial for the company to go ahead with the project, or whether is it better to actually abort the project. And it can be for many reasons. There's not enough resources, it doesn't make sense anymore because something else appears on the market, or there is a loss in the budget, etc. So that's why we should have a look at the budget as well. So you, in the budget module on your project, that's a place where you can keep a track of your cost, income, expense, etc. The good thing is also that when you are starting your project, you definitely have some planned budget for the project, you have planned incomes and expenses, and then as you go with your project, you can be adding the real incomes as expenses of the project. So to add either of these, you just click either of new income or new expense. And then what's important of the income is choose whether you are putting in the new planned income or real income. So at the beginning of the planning stage or starting of a project or initiating a project, you'll be using the planned income mainly. And then as you go further with the project, you'll be using the real income. So this is a good place to actually keep track of your expenses and incomes, which will later give you enough data to evaluate your project at the end of the stage or at the controlling stage of your project. So, as you know, I mentioned that when we are starting up a project, there was a subtask for us in the stage 1, which was called a team is assigned. So, it's very important as part of your organization theme of Prince2 and as part of the principle of defined roles and responsibilities to actually define the roles and responsibilities within your project and to have it clearly set up. This is done in several places. So as you know, when you go to your admin, in users is where you set up new users, you give them the user type. Then there is another place which is called roles and permission, where you actually set the roles and permission for the users within the system and within the particular projects. So every user type is connected with a role. And then there is a place in the users which is called organization structure, organization chart. This is a place where you actually create the hierarchy of your team within your Easy project. So you can see you have here the project manager. Depends, these are of course the user types that you have. If you use any other names, you can also always rename it to for instance, to a sponsor or a business analyst or member of a board, etc. And what this allows you over here is you can easily, or anyone who comes into your system can easily check, especially for people on the who are part of the board, meaning they don't really work on the project hands-on, but they oversee it. It's very important for them to have access to a place where they can easily find out this information. So over here, they can see who's the supervisor of who, project team member works in what project, team, etc. You can easily update this org chart simply by drag and drop. It can happen that when you have some long projects, some people leave the project, they don't work on the project anymore, or you get some new people in your project team, so you can easily update it over here. It's as easy as dragging them out of there and then bringing the new people in. Okay. You can also see the differentiation in the colors, so you can see who's the CEO or who is on the top level, who is on the second level, and who is the worker, which is the project team member. Just always make sure that you save this. And as I said, this is closely related to the user types, and roles and permissions. So this is more of a visual place where we can actually see the defined roles and responsibilities. Then one important place to also check your settings in is the workflow, which is again in the menu more admin. And workflow. What workflow allows us to do is for certain roles that we have in the system to allow them to work with the tasks and only change the task to certain statuses. Let me give you an example. Executive role would be a project team member. So that's someone that in our org structure, in our organization chart, we saw them in yellow. those people cannot put by the default settings. You can, as I said, you can always change it, of course, but the default settings, they cannot put the task into the status done, which you can see over here. So they can only use these statuses. So the furthest they can actually push the task is to a supervisor review, which means that their supervisor, who will be a project manager or a project sponsor, or perhaps even a business analyst, they will be the one who will have to review if the task is done correctly, how is it done, if it has everything it needs to have, before the task can be closed. Because when we are working in Gantt, we saw that once we close our tasks and subtasks, then our stage can be closed as well. So this is very important to have this clearly set up, that project team members cannot actually close the task. It's only their supervisors who can be, for instance, a project manager, who can close the task, because they have to review the task and all its attributes, if everything is done properly before it's closed. So let's see the difference. Here we can see the project team member with the executive role, and let's check the management role, which would be a project manager, and we'll see the difference shortly. As you can see, the project manager can actually close the task, put it in the task status done. Let's get back actually into our project, because another thing which is very important in Prince2 methodology are the documents. We know that there's a lot of documentation. There is a business case, there is this project mandate, there is a project brief, and those things need to be stored in your system. Now, there are several ways to do it. So, for instance, if we have our create a mandate task, there is a way how we can attach the content of the mandate. So by updating it, we can either put the content of the mandate over here in the notes, or we can attach a file, just as an example, any file. So we can attach it over here, or we can also add some summary or anything we need to add in the notes. When we save this, then we can actually also see, so for a person who is on the management level, they don't need to be going in each task by task, looking at the documents. If all they need to see, because they usually don't really care how it's done, but they just want to see the outcome, which is the documents. So in that case, first of all, we would have to switch on the module of documents on this project, which will be done in here, settings, modules, and documents. And let's have a look at the documents. So this is a place where all the documents that were attached to any particular task are stored for the project. So we'll always see the entity, meaning the task, where it was attached, and we'll see a list of all the documents over here. So over here, we'll be able to see all the documents within that one project, which is very important especially for the supervisors, so they can find all the related documents without the need of going in each task by task. So, should you have any questions, just feel free to type it in right now. So just to sum up, today we actually quickly ran through several principles, processes, and themes of Prince2, and now you know how to apply those in your easy project. And in details, the one that we actually spoke about were defined roles and responsibilities, which are connected with the organization charts, with the users, roles and permission, and actual workflow as well. Managed by stages principle, where we showed you how to plan out your project in WBS and Gantt, and how to create the relations, which are very important for the flow of your project, that stage 2 can only start after stage 1 has been completed. We also looked at the themes of organization, which is the org structure, We looked at the plans, which is the budget, because plans actually, they consist of many other things such as product, time scale, cost, quality, benefits, but one of them is cost, so it's very important to keep a track of your costs in the budget as well. We look at the theme of a progress, which is the baselines, where we can compare the progress and actually the change, the theme change as well. So we can see the changes, how the project has changed in time, how it has been delayed, or what changes happened. And we look at the processes, which are actually the stages of the project. So we saw how to plan those. So the question is, can you please show again the organization chart? Okay. Let's just quickly go there again. So how to access your organization chart? Actually, let me just delete the extra windows. So to go to your org chart, you have to, first of all, you actually have to have the rights to do that. So you have to go to the users, and then you have org chart over here. The org chart is as simple as simply using drag and drop. So we drag and drop someone, and then we create a hierarchy. This is also, for instance, very important if you use Easy Project for time tracking as well. So for instance, this is how you set up that someone has to approve holiday for someone, etc. And when you want to remove someone, again, you just use drag and drop. I hope that's sufficient. Do I need other functions? An admin. Well, if you are an admin, then you have, I can see the organization chart. Okay, we can have a look at it. If you are an admin, you have access to everything, really. If you want, actually, on our website, there is also, we always have more information on all our features. So if you want to have a look at organization scheme project specific, if you want to have a look at the organization within your, oh, sorry, in more detail, you can simply go to services. You can go to our training center, and you can find there is a video or an organization structure. It's actually over here. There's a second video there. So you can check the settings and everything in greater details. So as you could see, the organization structure is actually not project specific. So that's an overall thing. So yes, it has to be, that's why on the project, what's more important on the project is choosing the role for your users. So when they have the role, because they can have a role within the system, but you can always change their role within the project itself when you are adding them onto the project. Let's just go to members. So you can have a user whose overall, like a global role within the system is management role. But when you are adding them to the system, you can choose and override the role, or you can actually do it over here. So let's say that Connie, she usually has the management role. So she has all the roles and permissions for the management role. However, on this particular project, we want her to work as a project team member, not a project manager, or not the management role. So we would change it to the executive role. So that's really more, this setting is actually more important on the project level. How to set up milestones. Okay, we are going in a bit of detail now. Bye. So milestones, what are milestones first of all? Again, if you go to our training center and in our documentation over here on the right, you can always look for these things. The thing is that there's a lot we can talk about. So if we go to Gantt, you can find quite a few things about milestones over here. But basically, okay, let's go over here in our Gantt. So milestone basically means new task. So you can even see how to actually create it here straight in your Gantt and everything. What milestone means is that it's like a deadline. So if you have a milestone, each milestone will have a certain due date. And if you assign a milestone to a particular task, that task can never be moved behind that due date. When you're in Gantt over here, you can simply, if you want to create a new task or a milestone, you click on new, and then you can see here you can have new task. So you can actually create a new task straight in your Gantt, or you can create a new milestone. Okay, you can just create them. Okay, so you would have it as a milestone 1. And you can move it, drag and drop it, etc. So if you, and then when you have a task, you can actually assign the milestone to it, which means that the task, you won't be able, it's like a deadline for the task itself. As I said, if you go to our documentation, go to Gantt, and then look up the milestones in the Gantt chart. There is like a few related posts over here with the milestones. Okay, so if there is no more questions, but thank you so much for your time. We are going to have more webinars, of course, coming towards the end of October, and you will find a list of our planned webinars. The webinars that are yet to come, we'll be updating our website very soon. So if you go to Training Center webinars, you will see more webinars over there, and you will also find recording of all our past webinars. One more question that we have today is, are there any Prince2 templates? No. So at the moment, there's no Prince2 template because Prince2, like any project, is very specific. So as you know, when you are in our easy project and you go to project templates, there's many templates that you can actually use, such as for back office, HR, PM techniques, etc. You can easily import if you have some documents, such as business case, mandate, project brief. You can import those or attach those in there. But we don't have anything that at the moment that would be called actual Prince2 template. Is something that we are working on, and we'll be bringing that in the future. So thank you so much again for your time, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you at our next webinars, and I wish you good luck with your projects.